Okay, welcome book lovers. Welcome to our editor's picks. These are titles that have all been nominated by our publishers as exciting new voices in YA, traditionally under-supported voices, just stories that they want to amplify and to let you know about. This is Sarah Richmond from Edelweiss by Above the Tree Line. I'm just here facilitating. I'm really excited to introduce you to these books today and the editors and authors behind them. Before we get going, I want to take just a quick moment to note that this session is part of an ongoing work of Treeline 2020, which works to support diversity, equity, and inclusion in the publishing industry that we all love. This underlines all the work that we do as a company, but Treeline 2020 in particular accomplishes this goal through investing in organizations doing really great work, through providing access to internships and scholarships, and also amplifying under-supported voices. So thanks for listening, thanks for participating and making all of that possible. So today's session is pretty special. We're going to hear about an amazing collection of books. So whether you are a bookseller or a buyer at a bookstore, or maybe you're a librarian, maybe you are a reviewer or a blogger, or you're in the media, or you work in an agency, or you just love books and you're just a passionate reader, regardless, you're going to leave with some more books to add to your to-be-read list. I guarantee when I was putting together the slides for the books today, I added to my whole list. Don't worry, we'll share the links to all these books in Edelweiss so you can read the entire title listing and all of the data available there. If you're a store, you can add it to orders. If you're listing at Bookfest, you can also add these books to your tote bag and even purchase them from your favorite local independent bookstore. So we have representatives from these publishers today. Some of them are the authors themselves, and they're each going to take just a few minutes and they're going to tell us why they're so excited about this book. So with that, I'm going to stop talking and we're going to jump right into the books. We're going to start with Needle and Thread, and we have Manny is going to talk to us about this one.
Yes, so hello everyone. I'm Manny Castellanos. I am not the author of Needle and Thread. I am the director of sales for Madcave Studios, which is a comic book publisher. And we have recently launched a YA imprint called Maverick. And it's hard to mention Needle and Thread without first mentioning the imprint Maverick, because the message of both go hand in hand. The motto for Maverick is to find yourself in the pages. And whether you are a young adult by age or by heart, these are stories that will resonate with you. This is the imprint created for those young readers who think a little differently, are unafraid to be independent, and fight for who they really are. Whether one has already lived through it or not, these stories shine a light on the moments that really define the word or term coming of age. And to be more specific, YA, which is why Needle and Thread is the first and best book to launch our imprint Maverick. Now, Needle and Thread follows two high school seniors. One is a social wallflower named Noah who wants to pursue a career in fashion and design, but he keeps getting pushed down by his family and peers. And the other main character is the cool, popular girl, head cheerleader named Azari, and she's born to a political family. She has to keep up nice and tidy, wealthy appearance, but all she wants to do is really just hang out at the arcade and geek out and talk about her actual interest, which is in nerd culture. And together we find out that Noah and Azari's interests intersect through cosplay. Now, as a young adult or teenager, all you want to be is yourself. You want to be unashamed of who you are, what you love. But because of societal pressures put on us by friends and families, it's hard to be that person sometimes. I know personally that's happened with me. But with a strong support system by the friends that care and uplift you, you get closer to being the person you can be. And that's what the characters Noah and Azari do for each other. They constantly uplift each other. There's no veil disguising who they are or their intentions. They can simply be who they've always wanted to be, who they are. And jumping ahead, of course, it wouldn't be that much fun if things didn't work out in the end for our main characters. But what follows is the continuation of a wholesome relationship. And even though both characters go their separate ways at the end of the story, there are no goodbyes. Their story of high school may end, but the story of their life, their friendship, lives on. And this story is written by David Pickney and is illustrated by Anun Anayuru. Both are newcomers, and both of them draw from their own experiences to tell the story. And as you read the story, you will see that there is a raw authenticity, unlike any YA story I personally read. Maybe I'm biased, but I genuinely love this book. And the new art perfectly captures that raw authenticity. It's reminiscent of Witchlight by Jesse Zabarsky, but it's wholly original and really like just absolutely adorable and wholesome. There's like hilarious facial expressions and real honest looks of yearning for more within our characters. And this is just the first of many YA stories that Madcave will be telling through our Maverick imprint. They're intimate stories revolving around young characters overcoming the craziest obstacles in front of them, which is just everyday life. And thank you so much for being able to talk to you. And you could actually read the advanced reader copy of Needle and Thread on Edelweiss.
Thanks, Manny. That seems like such a unique coming of age story, and definitely to check out on Edelweiss so you can see some of that artwork. That's pretty amazing.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that one.
No problem.
All right. Next up, we have For All Time, and we have the author, Shannon Miles, is going to talk to us about this one.
Hi, everyone, wherever you are across the world today. I'm Shauna Miles. I am the author of For All Time. It is my debut novel with Simon & Schuster. It will be coming out in September of this year, and I'm really, really excited to talk about it today with you. So For All Time is about Tamar and Fayard. They are two teens living in South Carolina, that's where I'm from, who are in a bone-deep kind of love, and they know it. But this isn't the first time they've been in love. This isn't the first time they've lived this life. They're caught in a cycle of loving and losing each other and their lives, and they've got to break that cycle. Tamar loves music, but when she begins to get visions of her past lives, she starts to wonder if there's a time limit on her life and the love that she wants. Bayard is a hustler, a card shark, but mostly he's head over heels for Tamar. And no matter how much she pulls away, he finds himself hopelessly tethered to her. It's a love story of soulmates. It's a fantasy and it's science fiction all rolled into one. It is the definition of epic, and that's what I wanted, an epic love story. For me, writing is soul work and self-care. So when I write, I'm caring for the me that did not have love stories with Black girls and Black boys loving hard and loving soft. I write for the missing stories of men and women who walked across states looking for missing wives and husbands during Reconstruction. For me, I think love stories are revolutionary. I don't think people want to admit that they read romance, even though it's, the best-selling genre that there is. They think it's kind of wishful thinking, but love is at the center of what we need to survive. I didn't really begin to read romance until I was in my 30s, and then I started to devour it. When I'm at my lowest, I can always find hope in romance, and I want to give that to readers. I want to give them hope. I want to take up literary space with my work and carve out a corner of readers' minds with magic and fantasy and ideas that are like seeds that you don't see growing. Once they plant somewhere deep into your brain or deep into your heart, they'll sprout later on. A little bit about me. I went to USC or USC. So University of South Carolina, not the University of Southern California. And all of my stories are set in the South at some point. Many of you may be librarians, and I'd like to say that I am a fellow librarian. I am a school librarian at a high school in Atlanta, Georgia, and I became a librarian just so that I could be a book pusher. So that's what I do on a regular basis. So I try to kind of really hone in on what teenagers, what, YA readers, no matter how old they are, want. I started reading and loving stories from people like Nicola Yoon and Danielle Clayton, and even your problematic Orson Scott Card. And their stories were great. And I wanted to kind of emulate that. At first, I wrote stories that weren't so good. And then I got better. And between querying for an agent, I started to read books by Beverly Jenkins. And she's an adult romance writer, and she is the greatest of historical romances. And all of her characters are Black, and she explores eras in history that we don't often see Black people thriving in. And thriving is the optimal word, because we get to see Black people suffer in antebellum stories, and we get to see them shine in the Harlem Renaissance. They'll suffer again in the Civil Rights era in the 60s. And then for a long time, there was like, we got to be a lot of side characters. They could exist, but they can only exist as the one person in a sea of other people's central stories. And I want to kind of center them. That wasn't my experience. Like my parents were Black, my friends were Black, my boyfriends were too. I had white friends and Asian friends, but the stories centering people who looked like me were few and far between for a very long time. And things are changing now, but just now changing. I wrote For All Time because I wanted to place Black kids in love in all these different places and time. I wanted them to travel the stars like the adults in Octavia Butler novels. I wanted them to buy jewelry in a medieval market in Mali or herd cattle during the gold rush. This book was an experiment, and I'd written a full-length novel based on the Ellen and Henry Craft, who made their way to freedom by pretending to be a wealthy landowner and servant traveling together. Ellen was very light-skinned and she dressed up as a landowner. And I wrote a whole novel about that. And it worked. It was cool, but I put it to the side, but I still wanted to kind of play with some eras. And I caught the research bug and I started researching all these different things, and I started using the same characters. And once I had that going, I started to kind of say, well, I've got all these different people and these same people in these different eras. What if we could do? We could put them together. So once I did that, I came up with For All Time, and I'm excited about it. It's genre blending, just like I wanted. It's different. It's soft and hard in all the great places, and it's got a little bit of history and science fiction in it. So I think it really works for anyone. So I'm really excited to bring that to you guys this September. Thank you.
Thanks. That sounds, I mean, I got goosebumps thinking about that love that crosses lifetimes and, writing the book that you would have loved as a kid too, that crosses genres. And that's great. I'm sure your students are excited for it to come out too.
My students, they're funny little people.
They'll appreciate it later.
Prom. They're worried about prom right now. Prom is on Friday, so that's all they're thinking about right now.
Oh my goodness. All right. Thank you so much. Okay. Next up, we have Feminist AF, and we have Simon from Norton's going to talk to us about this. And this one, I think, is waiting a cover reveal. So that's exciting too. It's not even out yet. So talk to us about that one.
That's right. It is waiting a cover reveal. My name is Simon Boughton. I'm the publishing director at Norton Young Readers. We're a relatively new player in the children's and young adult part of the industry, although Norton is a familiar for 100 years now. Finally jumped out of their lane a little bit, and we're starting we're in the second year of a children's and young adult program. And I'm very proud of this book, Feminist AF, A Guide to Crushing Girlhood by Brittany Cooper, Chanel Kraft-Tanner, and Susanna Morris. The AF in the title means exactly what you think it means, although I do get asked for clarification occasionally. And I think it encapsulates the attitude, the voice, and the positioning of this book. The subtitle might be, and the subtext certainly is, F the patriarchy. Feminist AF is a manifesto and a guide to what feminism, Feminist AF is a manifesto and a guide to what feminism is, what it can do for you, and how to live it for young women of color, by women of color. It's forthright, it's assertive, and I think most of all, it's joyful. It's probably the biggest book we'll publish this year on the Norton Young Readers list, and I think it's a book that fills a need and a major opportunity for us and for you too. I thought the best way to introduce this book maybe was to quote a little bit from the introduction and from the voices of the authors, because this book is so strongly voiced. They write, we wrote this book for all the girls who proudly rep the feminist flag, but want to know how to live their feminism out loud. It will help you grapple with friendships, bodies, family dynamics, emotional health, music, misogyny, racism, pop culture, and more. This book is for loud and rowdy girls, quiet and nerdy girls, girls who rock naturals, girls who wear weaves, outspoken girls, opinionated girls, girls still finding their voice, girls who are already feminists, and girls who don't know what feminism is, queer girls, trans girls, and gender non-binary young folks who want to make the world better and who need the insights feminism has to make that happen. There's a strong statement, and the book covers all of this and more with direct advice, personal stories, anecdotes, and a lot of actionable guidance and information about body issues, health, family issues, politics, you name it, it's in there. The voice of the book is well-informed, it's authentic, and it's accessible. The authors pull off this easy seeming, but not so easy, and very cool trick of really sounding like that, that cool aunt, that older sister, that older friend, or that a young woman might turn to for advice or as a model. It's really present in the pages of this book. All three of them are college professors working with young women. And so they kind of instinctively understand how to listen and how to talk to young women. And as college professors, they also bring a kind of foundation of scholarship to this that's sometimes missing from well-intentioned but sort of intellectually thin guide and self-help books for teen readers. I guess I'm conscious sitting on this panel, and every time I talk about this book, of being the odd guy out, the older middle-aged white guy talking about a book for young women and young women of color about feminism. And what I love about this book, and why I'm so passionate about it, I think is sort of its necessity. This feels, as a publisher, this is publishing for the moment, for a clearly defined need, for a clearly defined audience. I am not the audience for this book, but I'm certainly someone who pays attention. And I think there's a lot in this book. There's a lot in this book for everybody. There's a lot I learn, there's a lot to learn for whoever you are. But what I love about it as a publisher is it is unapologetically and clearly for a particular audience by a particular authorship. As I said, I love the underpinning of scholarship in this book. I love how well informed these authors are. All three of them have distinctive areas of expertise, distinctive experience, and great platforms to speak from. And they speak with authenticity and love. I mentioned the scholarship that informs this book, and I think that's very important. Most of all, I love the voice. This book is written with energy and kind of a distinctive point of view. And as I said, with warmth. And I think the last thing, the point I always end when I talk about Feminist AF, the point at which I always end is with that sense of joy, that this is a book about changing the world and bringing activism and politics into your life as a young woman, but it's ultimately about doing so with joy. So it's full of that feeling of opportunity and energy and making the world a better place. It has so much to say to young women from 12 to 25. And as I said, I think it's a great opportunity for us, great opportunity for the industry to really put something useful out there in the world. So that is Feminist AF by Brittany Cooper, Chanel Croft-Tanner, and Susanna Morris, and it's out in October from Norton Young Readers.
Thanks for sharing that with us, Simon. I think that when you were talking about the book, I was like, oh man, I wish I'd had that as a teenager. I was searching for sort of that, looking around and doing the work and researching things. And it sounds like it would be just a great starting point for a lot of young women. So thank you for sharing.
Bet.
All right. Next up, we have We Are Not Broken, and we have the author here, George M. Johnson, is going to talk about their book.
Hello, everyone. So my name is George M. Johnson. I am the author of my first book, which is All Boys Aren't Blue, Memoir Manifesto, and I am the author of the forthcoming We Are Not Broken. I am a Black non-binary writer born and raised in a small city of Plainfield, New Jersey. I live by the quote, Toni Morrison states, if there's a book that you want to read and it hasn't been written yet, then you must write it. So anytime I am doing any type of work or looking for stories that I want to read, if I'm unable to find them, then it's a clue into myself that I am the person that needs to write it. At the center of this book is my grandmother, Nanny, who is also on the cover of the book. Nanny, whose real name was Louise Kennedy Evans Elder, was a woman born in Spartanburg, South Carolina, back in 1941. She was the baby of 10 children and somehow became the matriarch of our entire family, despite having 9 older siblings and multiple sisters who were older than her. Nanny moved to New Jersey and started her family in Plainfield, New Jersey back in the 60s. But what she ended up doing was raising her grandchildren in many ways. So with We Are Not Broken, it is a story of, like I like to say, the movie Stand By Me, but with 4 little Black boys and a Black grandmother at the center of our world and our universe. We Are Not Broken talks about myself, my younger brother Garrett, and my 2 cousins, Raul and Rasul. Both of my parents were in my life, but my cousins, Raul and Rasul, their parents were absentee at times. And so my grandmother went to court after fighting their mother, went to court and got custody of my 2 cousins. When she got custody of my 2 cousins, she also moved them in to Plainfield, and then she started taking care of me and my younger brother because both of my parents worked. So she decided to raise the 4 of us as if we were brothers. This story is important because we don't have many stories that talk about Black boyhood. When we think about Black boyhood, media depictions of Black boys, a lot of time it is centered in our trauma. A lot of times Black boys are aged up as early as the age of 5 years old. We have seen where Black children, the school to prison pipeline, where Black kids are punished at much higher rates than white kids, which sends them directly from school into the prison systems. We have also seen the story of Tamir Rice, a young 12-year-old Black boy who was simply playing with a toy gun and was killed by the police. We don't hear those type of stories about young white boys. Young white boys are taught to shoot, taught to hunt at a very, very young age, are taught the mechanics of a gun. We never hear stories of how young white children are feared by the police, or young white children have issues where at that age, they're being killed by the police in those type of numbers. We Are Not Broken discusses how 4 Black boys got to have a childhood, how 4 Black boys got to have imagination, how we got to travel, how despite us having to deal with the traumas of society, we had a Black grandmother who refused to let us become products of our environment. She refused to let societal pressures and societal standards strip our boyhood away from us. Each chapter starts off with a quote from my grandmother that we call nannyisms. She used to have these sayings that she would tell us, some of them funny, some of them not making a lot of sense to us at the time that we got to use much later in life, but they were her words that we lived by. So each chapter in the book is guided by her words. I thought it was extremely important that she got to have her words be immortalized in the book, because as Black people, we hold on to the words of our ancestors, and we have this ability where within our own families, we have ancestors who also give us that same guidance. The people within our families, however, never become the icons like Audre Lorde, like Toni Morrison, like James Baldwin. I felt it was important that people start to realize that we don't always have to look to the biggest icons to get the greatest wisdom, that sometimes that wisdom is already existing within our families and within our spaces. One of my favorite quotes of my grandmother's was, "You may have to wipe my ass one day." This was something she said to us when we were teenagers. And it was one of the quotes that I held on to throughout my entire life. And it's interesting how life sometimes plays out. In 2018, my grandmother, Nanny, was diagnosed with glioblastoma and had brain cancer. And 2019, I gave up my apartment in Brooklyn, moved back in with my parents, which could be a book on its own. And my mother and I decided to take care of my grandmother for the last 6 months of her life. And in taking care of her for the last 6 months of her life, we watched her lose her ability to walk, her ability to talk, and in essence, her ability to wipe her own ass. And but it was a humbling experience for me because it was something she had raised us to already do. It was not looking at her dying as much as it was preparing her to be an ancestor. And so this book goes deep dives into the last months of her life. I think it's important that we start to discuss the totality of the Black experience. Black boys, you know, we're told we're not supposed to cry, we're not supposed to be emotional. And a lot of times we pin that up, and then that emotion comes out as rage, or it comes out and projects out in many different ways. And We Are Not Broken, I allowed each of Nanny's grandchildren to write a letter to her as part of our grieving process. I wrote a letter, Rasul wrote letters, my younger brother wrote a letter. All of her grandchildren were allowed space to grieve in a very public way throughout this book, which I think is necessary for young readers to be able to read. One, because they don't teach letter writing in school anymore. And I think that is a very healthy way of getting things out, on paper. And so I want more kids to see how you can process things through writing. And two, because we don't really talk about the grieving process. We rarely discuss how, you know, grief is really just love with no place to go. And when you can find an outlet for that love, you can heal yourself. So We Are Not Broken, in essence, is a book that is looking to heal young Black boys in society, looking to heal the Black matriarchs and the Black grandmothers in society who have felt stifled, who have felt that they never had a voice. Or who have felt that their stories never got to be told in the full totality of their experience. And so I am extremely excited for everyone to read We Are Not Broken. In essence, it is a book that healed me. And I think it is a book that will heal many others who have been looking for stories similar to mine and the true story of what the Black boyhood experience is like.
Thank you for sharing your grandma with all of us, George. I can't wait to read that. I love that I started out my career in counseling. And so your talk about letter writing and processing grief and emotions there is such a healthy thing for people to learn and young adults to learn. So thank you for that. All right. Okay. So next up we have The Bones of Ruin, and we have the author Sarah Raleigh here to talk to us about this one as well.
First, I have to unmute. Am I unmuted?
Nope, I can't hear you.
Oh, I think I unmuted myself.
Can others hear her? Is it just me?
I unmuted.
Oh, you're good. I hear you. Okay, we're good.
Hey, everybody. Some technical difficulties, but it's okay. We're clear. Hi, my name is Sarah Raleigh, author of the Effigy series. You should pick that up at a bookstore near you. And I'm back with a new young adult trilogy. This time it's an epic historical fantasy set in Victorian London that flirts with the end of the world, the apocalypse. And this book is called The Bones of Ruin, and it's coming out this September 7th. So this is just an advanced reader copy that hopefully some of you might be able to get. If you can't, then pick up the book September 7th. So what is The Bones of Ruin about? The Bones of Ruin is about a circus tightrope dancer from Africa named Iris, and she has no idea who she is. She's lost her memories, right? But she has one secret, and that secret is she can't die. So where does she get this crazy power from? She has no idea, but there is someone out there who does know. The dark, dashing, deadly Adam Temple. very handsome, sexy character. He says he'll tell her everything she wants to know about who she is. But first, she has to agree to fighting for him in a tournament to the death against other supernatural people in London like herself. Doesn't sound so easy, but she's desperate to know who she is, so she agrees to his terms. But then again, some secrets are better left buried. So, for me, a lot of stories set in Victorian England that I've watched. I don't know if you've seen, Enola Holmes, the Sherlock Holmes movies. There's a whole bunch out right now. Um, they barely feature people of color. It's almost like we didn't exist in the 19th century in Europe or whatever. But in The Bones of Ruin, you're going to get a deeper sense of what it was really like in 19th century Britain, especially through the characters. That includes Iris's teammates who will fight alongside her in the Tournament of Freaks. So we've got Jin, her sarcastic circus partner, who dances with her on the tightrope and may or may not have feelings for her. And we've also got Max, a cheerful street fighter who's looking for his long lost sister. Both are, of course, incredibly handsome and incredibly irresistible. And I dare you to fall in love with one of them. But really, The Bones of Ruin has a huge, colorful cast of superpower characters divided into teams, all fighting against each other. And I think it'll be really fun for readers to decide what team they would want to be on if they were to fight in the Tournament of Freaks. So if you loved The Gilded Wolves or Chloe Gong's These Violent Delights, if you love romance, action, history, mystery, and if you're just up for escaping into a big, epic fantasy adventure, you'll love The Bones of Ruin. So look out for it. It's coming September 7th, 2021. Thank you.
It's a pretty epic cover too.
I love
It's
it.
amazing. Yeah. I love how it has the action and the romance and the paranormal aspect to it. Definitely is going to interest a lot of readers to check out. Thanks for sharing that. All right. Well, last but not least, we do have Why We Fly. This is a book coming from Sourcebooks in October as well. They weren't able to make it today. But I do want to just highlight this book. It's definitely one to check out. It's just a really heartfelt story about two teen girls, one white and one black, and their friendship gets tested through an act of rebellion against racism. So it's exploring a lot of really relevant topics going on right now, but also in a really approachable way with a great storyline about a friendship and kind of navigating this world and coming of age and navigating race and what that means in our country. And sometimes it's bittersweet, sometimes it's humorous, but it's definitely a great read to add to your list as well. It's by Kim Jones, who's a former manager of a bookstore called Little Shop of Stories. She works in the entertainment industry in Atlanta, Georgia, and also Gilly Siegel, who spent her college years in Israel and actually served in the IDF. She's currently a lawyer in an ad agency and lives in Atlanta, Georgia as well. So that's definitely one to check out as well. Thank you for everyone who shared their books with us today. These are some great ones to add to your list or to your tote bag. Check out the listings in Edelweiss. Many of them, as we mentioned, have review copies available if you'd like to read and review or preview before purchasing for your store or library. So check those out, and thanks for your time. Thanks, everybody.